What's up? It's going to be a new series we're putting out here at Powered by Iron Health channel. We're going to be adding a little small business twist to it. We're going to be starting to go to small businesses that are associated with health and wellness, and we're going to interview the owners. We're going to talk to them about their business, what they do. And in reality, we're doing this so we can show you what small business is about, and especially the health and wellness field. We want you to meet the owners here. Right? So our first one is here at Primal. We're in Yorktown. We're going to take a step inside in a minute. We're going to go through a little tour. These two people in here this one's very close to me because they're friends to me. Vin and Evie, great people. We're going to meet them. We're going to hear their story. And if you do like what you hear, let us know. I want to start doing more of these, but you guys got to tell us. For me, it's fun. Small business is my passion, and especially in the health and wellness, right? So you're going to learn different things. You're going to hear different stories. But check it out. We're going to head on in. So follow me. What's up? All right, so we're Primal Bulls. This is Evie. That's from our
Hey.
Big song. That's Joseph. So these are the owners of Primal Bulls. So we're gonna do a little tour through their facility. You guys see what it's like. We're gonna let them lead the way. Check it out. I know for me, when I'm on the other side, I want to know what this place looks like. That's why I go to Google and I'm like, what's happening? What's going on? So we'll bring in the camera here. So take us on a tour. Let's take you through it.
Alright, so this is the hangout spot. We got a few local artists doing some art for us here.
Yeah, that one's cool.
It's like the mural. It's a popular spot.
Instagram pictures. This is another artist.
The local artist named Rios do this. He did an excellent job on this too.
Yeah, he's great.
He's the man.
They did some that Iron Out too, so it was pretty cool.
Should take him through where the magic happens.
Here's where all the goodness start.
Can I come back here?
Yeah.
Sure.
Make all the coffees, juices, and the acai bowls in there.
I feel like a barista back here.
Barista, you can teach how to make some coffee.
Yeah. It's really beautiful. What's in the fridge?
All the acai and the chicken for salads and everything is in there. We don't have much space to storage a lot of things, so everything's pretty much fresh.
Cool. You should check it out. All right, so thank you guys for letting me come to Primal. This is like a good home. Let's start with what do you guys do? What is Primal Bowls? Or I guess, are you guys rebranding it yet or no?
No, we're still at Primal Bowls, yeah. So, I mean, best way to describe us, we do acai bowls, pitaya bowls, coconut, fresh juices, oatmeal bowls, salads, good vibes, good energy when you come in here. That's about it. Am I missing anything, babe? Or is that?
Good food and good people.
That's it.
Yeah, I love that.
That's
So
what we
is
provide.
community a big aspect?
Yeah, it's huge. Yeah, it's one of our biggest. It's one of our core values, I would say. Like when we go in, community is what we try to push to our people who come in. We just try to establish that as best we can. Like community is huge for us.
Relationships, for sure.
Yeah.
Where'd that come from? Like, why do you guys do that?
It's a good question. I think it came from just our value system as a whole, personally, right? We enjoy that. Like that's really what we like to do. Is you could go in every day, right, and say like, okay, we're doing the same thing. We're on the grind, right? And it sometimes that could be monotonous, but when you take a step back and look, like like we're growing this community, like even from our staff to like our customers, people really enjoy it. So if we could grow within a community that like welcomes us, and we could give back to them, it makes it all worth it in the end, you know?
Yeah,
So
sure.
like that's probably off the top of my head, that's probably one of the reasons why that's one of our core values,
That's really cool.
Keeps us going.
Evie, you got anything to add?
No.
That was said,
Well said.
very well.
Well said.
Yeah, I think community is super important. So I'm glad. I mean, we could circle back around to core values too, because I'm actually interested with that. And I think it's important for people to hear that, right? Because that's your operating system. But before we dive into that, like, who's your ideal person? If I'm a person coming into Primal Bowls, like, who do you guys really want to attract here? Because that's more important than anything, right? Like, if you're gonna have a community, it's hey, who am I attracting into this facility? So who's your ideal person?
I would say health conscious people, families. We like to know their names, their vacation time, whatever they're doing in their lives. We like to link to what we're doing here. So kids, high schoolers, they come, they do their work here, they hang out, they have their little parties or whatever high schoolers do nowadays. I don't know anymore.
They do TikTok dances
TikTok
here.
dances.
TikToks, sure, they do.
They do.
Sometimes
they
we
go
have to.
on that little wall.
Oh,
and
really?
They do their
Oh man,
dances.
that's
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah.
That's cool. Actually, you should make that
Yeah.
a thing. You should make that a challenge.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
So it's just cool to see people liking to be here.
Yeah. So it's very like that goes back to actually community. You know,
Yeah.
you serve as like anyone who's a part of the community. That's
Exactly.
really cool. I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I feel like we, if we put that out there, we attract, it almost happens organically. We attract who we want in here, right?
Mhm.
And people find it naturally. And I mean, we're pretty inclusive, right? We're going to let anybody in, but I feel like it just happens through osmosis. It's like, oh, these people enjoy this vibe because that's something we're putting out. you know?
Yeah. And I think that stems from you guys. Exactly. It stems
Yeah.
from you and your core values. That's like, I'm glad that came up because that could be something we harp more on, like core values. Because I do it as well in my business. It's like, these are our core values. So we attract those people and the importance of that. So
Yeah.
reviewing that could be cool. But what's your origin story? Like, why did you start Primal Bowls? Like, how did that happen? When did you decide to do it? But let's start with the origin, really.
Let's start with yours.
So it goes a while ago when I decided to come to the United States in 2017
From where? So everyone knows.
from Brazil.
Yeah.
So I came as an au pair, supposed to stay for 2 years. Then I met this guy, and everything changed.
Screwed everything up. Diverted your plans.
Exactly. And then it's hard as an immigrant to have a follow-up plan because it's hard to find jobs. I was an engineer back in Brazil.
Oh, wow.
So it's like, it would be hard to, I had to go back to school here to get my degree again and do all over again. And then on that, like, I felt like I was in a limbo kind of thing. And then that's how we start thinking, what could we do and what would be true to ourselves to give back to people and what we could do to have a work or something for me, a job.
What brought you here in the first place?
To be an au pair as an exchange student.
So you just wanted to like experience America.
Experience, left my job, came here. It's like I want to see things. I want to experience different things. I felt stuck in Brazil for a little bit, so
Why?
it was just same thing over and over again. Bad job that I didn't like. Stuck in a little town doing pretty much nothing but working. So,
What kind of engineering did you do?
what do you call that? Management engineering, industrial engineering.
Industrial would probably
Industrial
know what it is, yeah.
engineering.
I don't even know what that is. What does
It's
that
like
mean?
supply chain.
Supply chain,
management, things like that.
factory. So planning how the factory works, all the process, and all the fun stuff.
Yeah, sounds
Excel, just
like
Excel.
you're Excel wizard. Well,
Oh,
that's why
yeah.
you guys are succeeding here. 'Cause you're an Excel wizard.
It's impressive.
What's the deal? Like I've heard that before, and I guess it could be cool for people to understand that. Or honestly, I want to understand like when you come from a different country, like it doesn't matter what country you come from. That degree squash. If I'm a doctor in Brazil and I come here, it's gone.
It doesn't squash, but you have to do like an extension. So let's say my degree had 100 hours worth of studying, and here you have to have 150. So I would go for another year just to get my degree valid here.
Okay, and is that traditional for any degree?
I would think so, yeah.
Okay, so there's always more hours in America.
Exactly, yeah.
That's interesting. I wonder why.
Even
It's
though
a-
I did
it's a
5
scam.
years instead.
It's a scam.
Okay, we cut that part out.
But yeah.
Cut that part out.
So it would be, I would have to go back to school for 2 years, and then it was just not worth it.
Yeah.
The money, the time, the headache,
Yeah, I don't blame you. I mean, that's
all the visa situation is just,
I'm sure that was a journey on its own, right?
exactly, yeah.
Do you want to talk about like what that is now? Are you good now since you guys are married?
No, we're not yet.
Wow. Why? Like, how's that process work?
just waiting for a green card interview, and it just takes forever. It's been 2 years almost
Yeah,
now.
just about.
Did they interview both of you guys?
Not
Separately,
yet. Yeah.
but yeah,
Oh, separate, like one-on-one.
yeah.
And they asked you about each other?
Mm-hmm.
That's
like,
wild.
That's the
weird
process. We haven't.
questions,
Yeah, we haven't experienced it yet, but that's what we hear.
My
That's what's going on.
my wife's cousin's husband's from Amsterdam, and when they came over and they got married, they did a dual interview, and they not only did a dual interview, they like took wedding photos that were actually theirs and like quizzed them on it, and then kept the photos. And,
Yeah.
like, you can't have these back. It's like what?
we
It's
had
bizarre.
sent so many photos and letters and wedding cards, everything, invitation, everything.
That's so wild.
It was a pack about this big, just papers.
And you guys are just waiting. It's the waiting game.
Pretty much. I think it was quicker, like pre-COVID, but now things are starting to ramp back up again. So hopefully we'll hear back soon. What did you just get? You got like a travel visa
I just
and all
got
that,
a
so we
travel
could.
parole card, so I can go and visit my family and everything. But that expires in not a couple months, in a few months.
Oh wow! So you guys gotta get going to Brazil soon.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
March, yeah, we're
That's
planning
good.
it.
Good for you guys.
Yeah.
Get a
thanks.
beach
Are you gonna do some market research on acai bowls or no?
Absolutely.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
we
absolutely.
have to.
We got a factory lined up and try to make a trip to the Amazon.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow,
absolutely.
that's pretty dope.
Yeah.
So is that why you picked acai bowls to be the staple? It's like you had that heritage. You knew what it
Yeah,
was. or-
so as Italians, Brazilians love food. That's our love language. And anywhere you go in Brazil, every little corner we have acai. Acai in like ice cream form, acai in juice form, and every form available. So that was something I knew. And again, food. I love food, and it's like you pour your love into food. So
That's true.
It's funny, like one of our customers that comes in often, I made a bowl, same exact bowl, right? It was the same thing, toppings were the same, everything looked the same, right? But it didn't, the customer said, it doesn't taste the same. And I was thinking, I'm like, it's because Evelyn made it. And I really do think there's something about it. You put love behind it, where mine's more mechanical. All right, this is here. But when you're putting the love in it, that Brazilian love, people feel the difference.
I'm
They
sure,
really do.
man. I
They
feel
feel
like
and
that
taste
could,
it.
anyone listening, that could be a good test. Come when Evelyn's here and when Vin's here, and start grading them. Maybe we'll put polls out on Instagram. And see
We'll
who's
prove that
better.
out. We'll prove that out,
I just think since
viewers.
she's from Brazil, hers is probably better anyways. You know what I
Probably.
mean?
Oh,
yeah.
She's been with it forever.
I know what it
Yeah.
is.
What makes up a good acai bowl?
So our acai, it's actually in the market with the less sugar content. So are you looking for like the better taste or healthier?
I don't know. I just
Both?
don't. The mechanics, like, what do you guys say is like what makes
So
Primal bowls, acai bowls like the best?
definitely our organic acai with less sugar content makes up to be a really tasty, and it's like the consistency is different also. Most places will have like an icy or a very watery acai. Ours is just, it feels like you're eating ice cream, but not really.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that creamy and like good ingredients, organic peanut butter.
Yeah, I think aside from love, it would be ours is pure acai. A lot of the time, like when we experimented with this when we first started, was blending it, right? We'd blend it with other fruits, maybe sometimes water, but we finally sourced one that was pure acai, right? So you're not getting that icy consistency. You don't taste any other fruits in it. It's not mixed with banana. It's a pure acai sorbet, which I feel makes a big difference.
Yeah.
And then
See, like,
compared
that's-
to the other ones.
That's super value. I wouldn't even know that.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's
Yeah,
really
most
valuable
places
information.
will
Yeah.
blend the acai with banana or pineapple or whatever. As we do in Brazil also with strawberries, banana, sometimes guarana, but ours here it's pure. And that was one of the ideas also. Before we opened, we tried a few different places and it just didn't taste like home, didn't taste like
Mm,
authentic. So we try to do that.
that's awesome. I love that.
Yeah, that kind of ties into like the origin story too. Like when we first started, right? They come up, we finally honed in on an idea, and this was right in the middle of the pandemic. So we were exploring, going through a few places, and then we were like, you know what? Let's just open, like, we'll build this makeshift website, right? And then we'll go and start delivering. And that's kind of where the process came up. We were trying different acais. We were just like, we set up a little delivery model. We were just going door to door to people's houses. And I think we finally settled on one we like through that, through that process, through growing through that. So
that's very cool.
Yeah, it was fun.
Let's double down on that, because that can segue into like more business too. Like,
yeah.
Talk more about how you guys started in the premise. You said you had a delivery service initially.
Yeah.
Like, what was that like? What was that process like? And I think for like people who don't know what small business is, or like how to start a small business, like what were your initial steps to get that going?
It's funny. I was thinking about this recently, and I don't know how much of we obviously had a plan, right? We had some idea, right? As far as like the logistics, okay, we need to find and source an acai. So we went through a lot of steps of saying, okay, we need to find acai. That's step one, right? Step two would be, how do we get the word out? So we started just going through, we created an Instagram. We created like a cheap website. And step three is kind of, let's just wing it. Let's just see what happens. Because we could spend so much time trying to figure that out. But I think that was probably the most important. Let's just try this and see what happens, right?
It was literally like a little list. It's like, what do we need to get the first bowl out? So a freezer, a couple like spoons and plastic bowls.
That was it.
Bags and that was it.
We're using a fridge, right? And then through all those steps, you learn what works, what doesn't. We started to build from there. And then it was cool to see it grow. And the more it grew, the more problems we had, the more things we had to figure out. And just through those steps is kind of what the plan was, right? Like we knew the basics, and then we formulated a plan based off what we were going through.
Very cool.
So we would go from having, when we had 2 or 3 customers a day, that was easy, right? But then it started going like, oh, now we have 10, now we have 20, and then we have to drive all over the place, So we just started to learn from there what to. And
you were doing that from your house,
right from our apartment. You might have to edit that part out too.
Our apartment, it had a commercial kitchen in it. So
commercial kitchen, that's right.
That's so wild. The small business stories are always the most fun thing to hear. So you're saying you had your basics, and then. You ever see South Park with the underpants gnomes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if you.
So it's like step 1, get underpants. Step 2, it's like step 3, profit. It's like,
that's it.
That's economics of small business.
It's just ... Yep.
When you guys were going through that process of really starting small, like what were some big hurdles that you started? And then what was the first time where you were like, okay, we could start taking this to the next level? Like what were some metrics or measurements in your head? You're like, oh, wow, this can work, or this is something we can implement and start to grow.
Hurdles too. I mean, there's, I feel like hurdles are dynamic, right? Because they're always going to come up, right? Like they always did. I think growth was one of them, like just having like growth and then saying like, how do we handle this logistically, right? So like that's where we started to implement systems to handle it. Whether like just going back to like where we're just doing delivery, how do we split the time, right? So like time management was one of the biggest hurdles to overcome for us still coming up, because it was working full time. I believe were you still babysitting?
I was babysitting part-time.
Yeah, and we were managing a psycho dog at home that we couldn't leave alone. So like time management was probably one of the biggest things to figure out. How do we systemize our time to be able to block off time to do this, to do the deliveries, to work on the marketing, to work on sourcing acai, getting all the supplies we need. That was one of the biggest hurdles I think we had to overcome in the beginning. And once we learned how to time manage properly and say, you know what, like we could do this. That was probably a big next step to be like, you know what, like let's just start looking for the next thing. Like, how do we continue to grow this? How do we continue to do this? Because it was a test within ourselves to be like, before you do it, you go through all those questions like, I don't know if I could manage this or take on all this, because it's stressful in the beginning where you're learning something new like that, right? Or going through anything that comes up. Customer service issues, I didn't get this on my bowl, or we delivered, whatever it may be, right? So we start to learn that it's like, hey, we could do this with proper time management, right? And proper, I guess, like ability to deal with stress management, right? Was probably the big thing, because that comes up a lot.
Increasing your capacity too, to that.
for sure.
for stress management. And I think that's important because that's so true. That's for any business, small or large.
Yeah.
Like, what were some things that you guys did in that initial phase as you were starting to get the snowball rolling, that you were like, all right, we have to learn how to manage this? Like, how did you, whether tactics or whether you just like did it through learning? What was the process for you?
Yeah, I think especially for us, right? Because we're a couple and we're doing a business together too. So, right, like the challenges come up with that. So we actually have to have like talks about how we handle the stress that comes up, like things that may come up, certain triggers, how we react towards each other, right? Were things that we had to learn. And I wouldn't even say systemize, but I guess it kind of was, right? Yeah, that too. Learn how to separate both as one, learn how to separate a life, right? And then the business. But I mean, it is a part of us in a way, right? But it's like taking time away. I get that. But yeah, there was definitely like, I think communication was like the biggest thing. Like, how do we communicate effectively to each other? How do we not let the emotions and like the stress that comes up to be like, okay, I'm feeling the stress, but how do I handle the situation in a logical manner? Because that, they come up, emotions ride high, things go wrong. You got to be able to like problem solve logically, even when the stressors are high, right? So that was kind of big. I think that was a big learning for us. I don't know if we really systemized it per se, but we definitely, as I think back on it now, we definitely had like honest conversations, like true deep conversations about like, how are we handling this? Because we definitely went through it. We were yelling at each other, taking everything personally. We learned how to like have conversations about it, separate it, and then just implement those behaviors going forward.
That's super valuable. I mean, especially like you said, you two being a couple, that's got to be another layer. Like, owning a small business already is tough, and now you're bringing in a relationship aspect of it. So, it's for you, you're extremely logical and analytical.
Yeah.
Like you're
I'm too.
Sometimes.
But he's systematically breaking it down, right? Like, so in that category, like if you were to reflect on the situation or like on the come up, what were some ways that you think you were able to manage the stress or manage whatever came up in business?
There were definitely times that he would tell me something about the business, and I would take it so personally, and things like, oh, he thinks he's my boss or something like that. Most of the times. What is it thinking? But it's better now, I believe.
I am the boss. That's what comes up.
Well, I think it comes down to, like you guys are saying, the communication style. Like, I'm very much like you, where we're super direct and like it's like one words and like you expect a response, and then you're probably like, oh, is it? I could totally see that.
Yeah. I think we learned a lot about each other. I mean, but again, like being open about it too. It's like, I think there is struggles that come with it, but I think there's advantages too, because at least from within our relationship, we know each other well. And it's like, we're honest in that degree where she knows me, I know her. Do things come up sometimes, or I'm too direct or coarse or whatever? Like, sometimes I feel like I can't talk to you the same way I would talk to like our manager, right? But at the same time, we learn how to deal with that. And if you get upset, she'll tell me, right? And I'll do the same thing. Like, so it's like, I think again, it's just communication, just having that openness about it.
It was a big thing.
Is a big thing. And again, there's still stuff that comes up. Like, we just hit our first year. There's always things that are going to come up. But, we learn, I think just having the ability to like be open about it and accept that, yeah, okay, I did this, or you did something, or, and then we come together and just figure out a way to plan for it.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's kind of like the way to do it.
And every level is a new devil, as they say, right? So every time you grow, something else is going to come up that you have to manage. I think we could have a whole podcast on how to be a couple in a business, because it seems like you guys like have it. You guys are figuring it out together, and it's actually, as far as like you saying, not having a system, but you kind of do have a system. And it's like, that's a lot of value to people who are in relationships that like businesses ruin them. You know what I mean? Like, that happens
100%.
all the time.
We could see it. I mean, I could see how it could, right? It's like there is that potential if you really delve into it. And we were aware of it, before we jumped in, like, so at least we kind of game planned a little bit. So I guess,
Yeah, it was
you're right. We
always a
did have a
conversation,
system. It was
yeah.
always a conversation. But I think until you live it, you don't really know what it's going to, what the experience is going to be like. You can intellectualize anything like, oh yeah, I can imagine that's crazy. But until you feel it, you're
It's
like, oh
funny
man, this is
because my
crazy.
parents own business together also,
Ah.
and my mom is out of her mind.
So you're saying you're like her then?
Not so
I didn't
much.
say.
Yeah, so like my father really has a hard time with her because she doesn't want to act like a business owner or like an employee, and she wants just money out of the business all the time.
Yeah.
And my dad would be like chill out. And she's like, don't talk to me like that.
She's gonna love this. I'm gonna translate it, send it to her.
So you learned what not to do from them.
Exactly.
That is hilarious, man. So let's go back to the start of Primal, because like I said, that whole conversation, if people like it, we could do a whole podcast on that. I really think that could give value to people.
Yeah, 100%.
But when you guys were raising up, like, what were your steps? Like, I know them personally, but for people, like, how did you decide to say, all right, we're gonna go from doing delivery to the next thing, and then how did you get to this beautiful facility?
Yeah, so the next step after that, we were looking for equipment, right? We're starting to prep, like, okay, eventually we're going to get into a spot. So I started looking for equipment. So we go on like Facebook Marketplace, whatever. And there was a place next to us at the Atrium, Peekskill, and they were selling some equipment. I stopped in, just ran, on a whim, looking to check the stuff out. And it turns out the property manager there was looking for someone to fill the space as like a pop-up. So that was the next step. We're like, all right, let's do it, right? So we put it out there, and she's like, we signed, like, they let us in for free, right, for like $1, and just let us operate out of there for a summer. And that's really where we really learned, like, something's like we could do this. We can make it happen, right? So like we were searching around in this place that we're in now. The previous owner left. We called them up and said, hey, like, the spot looks great. We want to check it out. Let's just go in and do it. We went through the process of, like, it still was there to be like, like, I don't know, the doubts kick in, right? Can we do this? Is it going to happen? But, you're like, what? We just pulled the trigger and said, let's figure it out, right? Like, the space was beautiful. Something was just pulling us to be like, let's make this happen.
It's ready to go.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, it was it was turnkey. It was ready to go. Like, we pretty much, being in that place for the summer at the Atrium was like our launching point, because we really learned how to do it. We developed some like process and these real like basic systems, right? Where everyone worked their spreadsheet magic, and we figured out like what sources we need, what kind of food we need, and what equipment we'll potentially need. And then we just did it, pulled the trigger, and we were in this spot and ready to go.
Because that's a good point too. And I think that's a good way to teach people lessons. Like, what caused you to pull the trigger? Like, what was the contributing factor? Or like, what do you tell people who are fearful in that situation to be like, you know what, you have to do it? Like, what were some things that pushed you over the edge that were like, all right, let's make this happen?
Yeah, that's
It's not now, when?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly.
And I guess it goes into like talking about doubt too. Like, how do you? So I guess that's a 2-point question. Like, what was the thing that pulled you over, and then how do you manage that voice that's always? Because I have it too every day. Like, oh, you're not going to be successful. You're not going to succeed. Like, those are a 2-point question.
And it's funny. So we have a kid that's working for us now that wants to do his own thing. And he's very analytical, this guy, and I can relate to him because he lives up in his head a lot, right? And he's a younger guy, and I don't think he's been through a process yet to where it's like, what can I say to him that's going to be like, you got to just pull the trigger and go, because you're going to get stuck in analysis paralysis, and and I've been there myself many times, right? And I think the biggest thing, right, and I was thinking about this question, the biggest thing is work on yourself, really, before you jump in, right? Like, you could spend so much time learning about systems and what do I need to do this and what do I need to implement and all that. The more you do that, the more fear and the more doubt builds up. So if you can really learn to condition yourself to be like someone who could just jump in and figure things out as they go, is really important. That was a big step for me, was just, instead of thinking about it, I'm
'Cause I'm like that.
I'm just going to go and do it and figure it out in the chaos, right? And just being okay with being in that environment, being okay dealing with all the craziness that's going to come up. But I didn't have that ability until I started to work on myself, right? And I've seen it within you, like when you came up, you know, sort of rise through the phoenix, so to speak, right? When you started your business, I seen the growth with that. But it took a lot of personal work to be able to make that step. And I think that is like, if I had to say to somebody like, hey, what do I do, right? Or any advice to say like, what do I do to just make that step? That's something they have to find within them to be able to like handle that, right? Because it's stressful, it comes up all the time. It's never ending. And I think developing that muscle is huge, to be like, when something comes up, and it could be the smallest thing, whether it's like in the gym or trying something new that you're going to suck at, whatever it may be, just do it and then figure it out as you go in. Because like, I feel like if I didn't have that, or didn't start doing those little small things in the beginning before this ever came to never amassed, I probably would have never been able to do it, or I would have never done it. Strong word, but I think like that's huge.
Interesting.
You know?
That's really powerful.
Yeah.
Would you said you were different than that. So like, what would you add, or like, how do you perceive these things?
I am the type that will have a spreadsheet, all the numbers, and it's like, if it's not perfect or it's not how I think it's perfect, I will never do it. But he definitely compliments with the push. It's like, no, we can do this.
Yeah. And likewise, I feel like having that too is nice too, because I'm not, you know, being on the extreme other side, like I push myself to get to that level. Having you to be able to reel it back is nice, because sometimes it gets too crazy and too much chaos, and it's like, all right, we're never going to come back from this. So having the balance is good. You know, I think having
like I won't do anything until I see it's like it's perfect, laid out and everything.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. So then, like, it's actually pretty amazing that you guys pulled the trigger then, like, because you were fighting an uphill battle, and like you wouldn't have done it either. So that's really cool that like you guys did it. You know, like we're on the opposite. I'm just give me chaos all day.
Yeah, you guys are the same. I'm not at all. It's like I need my spreadsheet and all my
It's bullet
points
for sure. But you know, I could think back and say like that's where the story about, you know, Matt was interesting. They like see what he was going through, because I don't feel I was always that way until I started to challenge myself to do those things, right? To go through the fear. You know, it's cliche, but he said you got to push towards the fear, because there's growth on like the other side of it, as you were saying before. Totally. I feel that that's huge. Like it's gotten to the point where it's like I don't feel as fulfilled if there's not that next step, because you get so comfortable so quick. It's what's the next thing? And then you're like, all right.
Yeah, I'm learning that.
I'm like, what's next? Let's go find that. Let's go find that next thing.
You have to get addicted to the process of that category. Like I drew a circle for my last team meeting, and I was like, this is your comfort zone. And then there's a second circle around that. And it's like every single time you push past that, fear kicks in and it brings you back down. You have to get comfortable in that gap zone, because that's where your growth is. Like you gap, and then you have a new baseline. Like you guys said it before, where it's like, oh, we figured out we can do this because we were delivering, and it's like that brings you so much like, oh, I can tolerate this, and then it keeps pushing you forward. So
then
it's like those
that's
incremental
your new
steps.
Comfort zone, and then you go back.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, it's amazing, and it's amazing how quick that comfort zone kicks in.
Oh yeah.
I didn't think I'm like, all right, I'm like used to this now. This is fun, but then you're like, all right, what's the next thing? Let's go. What's the next step to push through? You know,
so
and that's
true.
where it's fun, even though it's uncomfortable. It's a stressor, but I think you're hitting on the head there. It's like you learn to like love that. You love the grind. You know, I think that was a big thing for us too, was learning to love the process versus like
just the results.
Yeah, the results, and you flip that switch to be like, oh, I got to do this or I have to do that. For me, a big step was like, you know what, I get to do these things. Yeah. I get to do it. I get to have fun doing it versus like, all right, what's the next tedious task that I have to do now? You know, getting caught up in that thought process is it's not a good loop to get stuck in, because I've been there, you know. So
That's super valuable stuff right there, man.
Yeah,
That really is. If you have anyone coming up the chain, and this could be another question, who is contemplating starting a business, like you said, you have a guy who works from you.
Yeah.
Like, how do you coach him through it? Or someone in a completely different related business who's like ready to, they're like, I want to do this. Like, what are some key things you would tell them to start doing today?
I think personal growth is one. Like, challenge yourself, right? To challenge your thought process. That's what I did with this guy. Is I challenged his thought process, and I think what really helped him go to the next level is just saying things like, "Look, you can't get stuck in analysis paralysis all the time. There's a point where you just have to do it. You know, you just have to go, and you'll figure it out alone." He's 21, so it's like you think about that too. It's like, dude, you could fail as much as you can right now.
Yeah.
Just do it, you know. But that's what I think is probably the most important thing. Over anything is just jump in, just do it. And you'll figure it out as you go along, right? And I think even if you don't make it or something happens, whatever it may be, there's so much learning and growth on the other side of that, you know, versus never doing it. Like, you could plan all day. We have stuff that comes up, you know, like all the time, right? But to me, it's like, all right, this is just a flaw in our system, so let's just correct it, right? It comes up all the time. There's always got to be something. So that,
sure.
To me, I feel like that's like the biggest thing.
Such a good lesson. Work on yourself. What about you? What would you tell someone?
I mean, with this guy, I normally just do all like the in and outs of owning a business, on like the technical part of it. That I wish somebody had told me.
Yeah.
That I'm still like figuring out. I could have not paid so much taxes in something for like buying, and nobody ever told us about it. I just figured out. So it's like I try to give him like the technical part.
How would you tell someone tell someone to learn that? Like, you guys didn't learn it. Like, what would you suggest to them to go start learning it?
I wish we did have like some like expert consultant, so like you would know most of like the process and like the operational part, which we didn't have clue about it. We just still like going through it and figuring out. So that if a person that's opening a new business could do it, that's a good thing to do.
Yeah, mentors are huge
Yeah.
too. You know, that's something that, you know, it's obviously we had our friend group at U. We had, you know, people in the game, in the small business world, but not specific to like what we were doing. We all have our, you know, I think at a high level, it's all the same, but the nuances are different.
Yeah.
You know, so it would have been nice to have someone to have to go in and say like, hey, what are the sort of things we should look out for? But, you know, at the same time, maybe we just, you know, we're trailblazing a little bit and for our own sort of story. And if we could pass that on to someone else, you know, I'm more than happy to happy to do it.
Those are two
you know?
valuable lessons. Work on yourself. If you can, hire someone who's already been there.
Yeah,
Exactly.
You know, like that, you cut in
That's
the learning
huge.
curve, which is huge.
For sure.
Definitely.
What's your guys' vision for Primal Bowls? Like, where are you taking this? I think this is a good question. Like, every business, I would say, needs a vision. So what's the vision?
Yeah, I mean, right now it's growth. You know, we're in a stage like we're growing every day, every month. Like, so our next step would definitely be get another location. You know, this year we're looking to launch our newsletter. We're looking to launch a new loyalty program and subscription service. So we're going to start adding in new value for our customers. But yeah, it's right now it's growth. We want to expand, right? So right now, like, just immediate goal would be to get a second location. And then from there, you know, who knows, like, we had visions of doing like a franchise, but we'll see how it goes. I want to see how the second one is and expand from there. And that's our short-term vision right now.
Very cool. I love that.
But keep the family vibe going.
Yeah.
Not like franchise that nobody knows anymore.
Yeah.
That's that I noticed too is like a big challenge. This is probably could be just a topic in itself, is like, as you expand, right? How to keep that. So a lot of it I feel like comes from us, right? Like, people come because they love us and the feeling that we give them when they come in. So it's like, how do we transfer that into our employees and our staff and our culture to have it that same effect on the clients as they're coming in. I feel like the more you grow, and we haven't done this yet, so I don't know, but it's like, how do you not lose sight of that?
Who you are.
Of who you are, right? Yeah, exactly.
Totally. I think that's going to be something that's going to come up. I deal with that. We're at 4 clinics. The culture is so important, but the caveat is if someone's still at the helm, and it's like you guys are still at the helm being a small business, I don't think it's going to be a problem until it's like a massive company, because then it's really hard. That's when things change, when you start to go to that level.
Yeah.
That's my belief. But if you still have people at the helm who are so tied to the small business, that culture bleeds through you. That comes through you, and then it's just a part of it. But that is an interesting like next growth level to see. Like, all right, how do we make sure as we grow, we're not just this like empty vacant place.
Generic.
Yeah, we're a community. We're the community, which is a big part of your values there. So it's like that is an important thing, and it's you'll see as you grow. It's fun.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, we're not there yet, but that's the goal.
Big vision,
right?
man. We'll
that's
hold you to that. We'll revisit this podcast in a year and see where you're at.
A year from now.
I'm looking forward to the challenge.
If people want to come in or learn more, where can they find some information? What's your address? Let's blast it out.
Yeah, so you could find us on primalbowls.com. We're gonna, like I said, we're gonna have a newsletter, so sign up for that. We're gonna have plenty of rewards, promotion, information that we're gonna be sharing for free. Events. Yeah, we're gonna have some events going into 2023, and you could find us on Instagram at Primal Bowls. And do we have any others?
We are in Yorktown, Commerce Street.
Yep, Yorktown Heights, Commerce Street. So come by and see us.
Awesome. Guys, this is Powered by Iron Health Channel, our first podcast, business podcast. Thank you guys. I hope this does well. This was fun for me. Hope you guys have fun.
Yeah, this was great.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So if you guys liked it, just give us a comment, give us a share. We're trying to spread the news about Primal Bowls and other small businesses in the health and wellness field. So thank you guys for watching.
Thank you.